7 spine-chilling true horror stories exposed. Sinister secrets from the haunted and cursed. Jenna felt the chill run down her spine the moment they stepped into their new home in Maplewood. It had been a battle just to get here. A difficult divorce had left her fighting tooth and nail to keep Ben and Lily safe. But this place? It was supposed to be a fresh start. But something was off. Whispering shadows flickered just outside her view, coaxing her mind into paranoia. Every creak in the ancient house echoed like a warning, sending her heart racing. It's just the house settling, she told herself, but deep down a cold dread gnawed at her. A week in, Jenna's exhaustion from working double shifts in the hospital was palpable, but the nightly disturbances were even haunting. A soft tremor of unease started to drown her thoughts. Malevolent whispers tickled her ears when she tried to sleep. Shadows danced at the edges of her vision, hints of something lurking. Drop like ice in her veins. Just last night, she had seen something, a glimmer of eyes blinking back at her from the backyard tree line. But when morning arrived and daylight quelled the night's fright, Jenna brushed it off as she put on her scrubs. "Mom, look what I found," Ben shouted one evening, dragging her up to the attic. There it was, a charm, ancient and eerie. Its carved surface seemed to throb under the dim light as though it were alive. The air turned thick, and Ben's eyes widened with curiosity, though Jenna felt a shiver race through her, warning her to throw it out. Before she could say anything, he slipped it into his pocket. Days melted into nights, and the neighborhood cheer seemed laced with something sinister. Jenna noticed the kids disappearing one by one. It began with Ben's friend from next door, gone without a trace. Then another and another. Each absence sank like a stone in her gut, stirring a rising tide of fear. And Mr. Thompson, the once seemingly harmless elderly neighbor? He began to linger. His uninvited visits filled her with dread. Every time his gaze lingered on her children, she felt like prey. She could sense something dark inside him, and every instinct screamed to run. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. That night, the air felt electric. The whispers turned from a gentle hum to a deafening chorus as shadows wrapped around her like a cold embrace. Determined to confront Mr. Thompson, Jenna marched to the edge of their yard, the moonlight casting a ghostly pallor. "What do you want from us?" she yelled, her heart pounding like thunder. He opened his mouth to respond just as a blood-curdling shriek echoed from the woods behind their home. Ben and Lily flinched, terror radiating from them like heat. The shadows twisted and warped around them, trees shifting into grotesque shapes as Jenna's mind raced. She had unknowingly pulled her family into a nightmare woven from ancient secrets. Time was slipping away, and the reality of her choice hit her like a cold wave. Protect her children, or surrender to the darkness tightening its grip. As Ben clutched the charm in a trembling hand, Jenna felt as if fate itself was conspiring against them. What would she sacrifice to save them? The question hung heavy in the air, a terrifying weight that loomed over their uncertain future. The darkness deepened as Jenna faced the sinister woods behind her home. Each twisted branch reached toward her, as if hungry for her family's fear. A cold gust whipped through the trees, carrying the shriek with it, an unholy wail that chilled Jenna to her core. "Stay close," she shouted, gripping Lily's hand tightly. Ben clutched the charm, his small fingers turning white from the pressure. The air felt alive and heavy, charged with something dark that loomed ever closer. Jenna's breath quickened and panic clawed at her stomach. A horrifying thought struck her. What if the charm Ben had found was somehow linked to the disappearances? A wave of desperation washed over her. "We need to get rid of it." She felt the words come out as a whisper, but they weighed heavily in the air between them. The children exchanged frightened glances, Ben's eyes wide in protest. "But it's mine, Mom! What if it's magic?" His voice quivered, uncertainty wrapping around his words. "Magic?" Jenna scoffed, but fear dripped from her voice. "This is not the time for make-believe. We need to be careful." But Ben was entranced. Something dark shimmered in his eyes, a glint that sent shivers racing down her spine. "What if it can help us?" "Help us?" she echoed, struggling to contain her rising dread. If only he knew what was truly at stake. The world had started to crumble around them, and her precious boy seemed oblivious to the peril right at their doorstep. From the corner of her eye, Jenna noticed a form moving in the shadows. Mr. Thompson, lurking just beyond the edge of their yard. His eyes were eerily wide, lit by a sickening glee as he whispered to the darkness surrounding him. "Let them play, dear Jenna, let them play," he called, as if the night itself had conspired with him. Jenna's heart sank. "Get inside, now!" she yelled, but Ben stood frozen, entranced by Mr. Thompson's gaze. Fear turned to panic as Jenna lunged for him, grabbing his arm just as shadows sprawled out like claws, reaching.
"Run, Lily, run!" They bolted toward the house, feet pounding the ground, urgency fueling their escape. Jenna could hear the faint sounds of Mr. Thompson's laughter trailing behind them, merging with the whispers that clawed at her mind. Inside, the door slammed shut, but the stillness was short-lived. The air was heavy, thick with an unshakable tension. Jenna flipped the lock and turned to her children, who stood trembling. "Mom, what's happening?" Lily's voice was small, lost in the chaos swirling around them. "I don't know," Jenna whispered, panic mounting as she glanced toward the window. The shadows outside seemed to writhe, hissing with malicious delight. The charm in Ben's pocket pulsed as if alive, a throbbing echo of the terror that engulfed them. "Ben, the charm! We have to get rid of it!" He hesitated, uncertainty flickering in his gaze. But then he met her eyes, and finally understanding spilled across his face. "Okay," he whispered, pulling it from his pocket. Before he could toss it, the window shattered, sending shards of glass flying. Darkness rushed in, swirling around them like a living thing. Jenna screamed, shielding her kids as the shadows surged, threatening to engulf them whole. "Mom!" Ben cried out. The shadows twisted towards him, eager to snatch him away. Jenna's instincts kicked into overdrive. "Ben, throw it, now!" In that split second, the charm slipped from his fingers, the world holding its breath. It clattered to the floor, crackling like a live wire. But the shadows didn't retreat. They pressed closer, their whispering now a deafening roar. Jenna felt the floor shake beneath her, the pulse of an evil heartbeat echoing through the walls. What had she unleashed? What had they awakened? As the darkness closed in, Jenna's heart raced with a singular thought. If they didn't fight back now, they would be lost forever. Desperation burned in her chest, an ultimate confrontation looming on the horizon. But lurking in the twisted shadows, a new figure emerged, calling to them through the chaos. With a voice chillingly familiar. "You think it's just a game, don't you?" Jenna's heart dropped. What had they truly awakened? The shadows pulsed with anticipation, the air thick with an otherworldly dread. Jenna clutched her children tighter, their small frames trembling against her. The voice resonated deeply, echoing in her mind like an old memory that had been long buried, a memory she wished had stayed buried. "You think it's just a game, don't you?" The voice belonged to Mr. Thompson, unmistakably, but he looked different now, his grin wider, teeth sharper, glimmering in the shifting shadows. Ah, but dear Jenna, darkness isn't just something you watch, it's something you become a part of. "Stay away from my kids!" she screamed, pushing Lily and Ben behind her. Every instinct screamed to run, but she couldn't. She wouldn't abandon them, not now. Mr. Thompson stepped closer, merging with the shadows, his form twisting. "You opened the door, Jenna. You've invited the darkness in."
What fun it is to play! A chill ran down Jenna's spine, and she spat back. "You're insane!" "Insanity is merely a door into the unknown," he countered, his voice dripping with malice. "Let's see if your children can survive the night. Let's see if they can play the game." From behind him, the darkness formed shapes, tendrils of shadow creeping along the floorboards, whispering and hissing. Jenna's heart raced. "We won't play, not with you!" In a sudden burst of courage, she grabbed the charm from the floor, its pulsing finally catching her full attention. For a heartbeat, it felt warm in her palms. "You think you control the game? You don't!" Jenna shot a fierce gaze at the ever-encroaching shadows. "We do!" The moment the charm touched her skin, an electric jolt surged through her. The whispers turned into screams, the shadows recoiling visibly. It felt like power, raw and unfiltered. "Lily, Ben, hold on to me," she urged, pulling them close. As they huddled together, the shadows writhed and snapped, as if the very air was alive, torn between the darkness and the light of the charm. Through the chaos, Jenna felt the weight of her resolve. This wasn't just about fighting for survival. It was a battle for their souls. "Now!" she cried, and together they thrust the charm into the darkness. A blinding light erupted as the charm detonated into a series of brilliant sparks. The shadows howled, retreating against the sudden brilliance, but the glow only intensified. "No!" Mr. Thompson screamed, his figure distorting, twisting as he was pulled back into the void. The whispers became enraged shrieks, the shadows flickering like a dying flame. But just as Jenna felt hope igniting, a thick darkness surged, rushing back. It latched onto her like a vice, dragging her down. Terror painted her vision black. "Mom!" Ben's cry pierced through, but she couldn't pull away. The light faltered, flickering on the brink. With an agonizing effort, Jenna fought against the demonic grip. "I won't let you take them!" she cried out, her voice breaking as she reached for her children. "Not now, not ever!" The darkness hissed back, writhing against her like poisonous smoke. Just when she thought she couldn't hold on any longer, a familiar warmth ignited in her hand, the charm pulsing with her heartbeat as it shone brighter than ever. Then silence fell like a blanket. The shadows recoiled, and for a moment everything stood still. "What just happened?" Jenna breathed, glancing around. But in the eerie stillness, she realized something chilling. Those in the shadows were gone, but what remained outside the circle of light? The front door burst open, revealing the unnerving quiet of the night, yet more darkness loomed beyond the threshold. "What did we just unleash?" Jenna whispered, dread creeping back. Lily and Ben stepped hesitantly toward the door, hearts pounding in their chests. "Mom," Ben said, voice shaking, "I have a bad feeling about this." And just as Jenna opened her mouth to reply, a figure emerged from beyond the threshold, cloaked in shadows, a smile lurking in the gloom. "Game's not over yet."
Jenna's blood ran cold as the figure advanced, blackening the light with every step. What new horrors awaited them? Jenna's heart thundered in her chest as the figure emerged from the darkness, each stride heavy with an impending doom. It was cloaked in shadows, a silhouette of pure malice, with eyes that glowed like embers, piercing through the encroaching night. "Who are you?" Jenna challenged, her voice trembling yet defiant. Lily and Ben clung to her sides, their small bodies shaking with fear. "You really don't remember me, do you?" The figure spoke, voice smooth and silky, dripping with mockery. "You invited me into your life the day you took that charm." A cold sweat dripped down Jenna's back. Memories flashed through her mind, half-formed dreams clashing with painful recollections of Mr. Thompson and the games they had played, each worse than the last. You were supposed to be gone," she stammered, inching backward. "No, my dear," the shadowed figure cooed, advancing. The light around Jenna seemed to diminish with each step, as if the very air was devouring it. "You brought me back when you lit the charm, but I've come to play a different game, one that you won't soon forget." The door behind them slammed shut with a deafening thud, trapping them in a nightmarish cocoon of isolation. Jenna's stomach dropped. The world outside felt far away, as if a barrier not only of light, but of reality itself had come crashing down. "Mom!" Ben cried, panic swelling in his voice. "What do we do?" Jenna's mind raced. "Stay close," she whispered, pulling them tighter. She felt the faint pulse of the charm still flickering in her palm, but its light was waning. "Whatever happens, don't look away from me." Now. The figure stretched out a hand, fingers curling like a spider's legs. "You have a choice to make. The game is simple. Will you sacrifice one of your children to save the other, or will you all fail together?" "No!" Jenna shouted, voice thick with raw anger. "I won't let you do this." "Ah, but wasn't it you who invited the darkness in? You opened that door. You should have known that games come at a price." It laughed, sending an icy chill coursing through the room. The shadows seemed to pulse in time with the sinister tones of the figure's voice, wrapping around her like a suffocating blanket. Time slowed as Jenna looked at Lily, then at Ben. The thought of choosing between them sent waves of nausea crashing against her gut. "I won't sacrifice anyone. We'll find another way." "Another way," the figure mocked. "You're as naive as I remember. Each moment you waste in denial comes at a cost. The darkness feeds on hesitation and fear." Jenna glanced at the charm, its light almost snuffed out. "What if I can defeat you?" she blurted, the words bursting forth in desperation. "What if I can banish you once and for all?" A dark chuckle echoed around her. "Defeat me? How charming! But let's see how strong you really are when faced with despair." Suddenly, shadows leaped from the walls, stretching toward Lily and Ben, tendrils reaching for their fragile forms, their whispers filling the air. "Mom!" Lily cried out, the fear in her voice slicing through Jenna's resolve. "Stay back!" Jenna roared, thrusting the charm toward the encroaching dark. It flickered weakly, the power waning, yet the shadows recoiled slightly, buying her a moment. But it wasn't enough. The figure lurked closer, energy crackling between them. "You still have time. Choose." As heavy darkness threatened to engulf them, Jenna's breath caught. What had she unleashed tonight? And would she find the strength to fight for her children, or would despair shatter them all? The walls began to close in, and the shadows whispered secrets of betrayal and fear, her greatest nightmares lurking just out of reach. "Just give in," the figure murmured, eyes glimmering in the faint light. With a heart full of dread, Jenna steeled herself for the impossible choice ahead, hoping against hope for a sign. What would she sacrifice to save her family? But as the shadows lunged forward, she could barely think. The game was far from over. The shadows writhed like living serpents, lunging toward Jenna's children with a hunger that was palpable, a raw, suffocating force that clawed at the edges of her sanity. "No!" she screamed, her voice a desperate plea that dispersed into the murky air, mingling with her children's whimpers. With a surge of adrenaline, Jenna twisted the charm between her fingers. "I won't let you take them," she shouted, her words piercing through the veil of darkness like a flare in the pitch-black void. The darkness hissed in hesitation, the tendrils slowing their advance, but it was still far too close for comfort. "Such bravado," the figure sneered, its eyes shimmering with malicious delight. "But it's futile. You cannot resist forever." Its laughter echoed through the room, a chilling melody that grated against her nerves. Jenna felt the rush of air swirl around her, an eerie howling whispering promises of despair. But she stood her ground. Lilies of fear bloomed in her chest, yet she buried them, channeling that energy into a protective wall around her children. "We're getting out of here!" "Mom!" Ben's voice cracked, panic bubbling like a broken dam as he clung tighter to her side. Jenna felt his small hand tremble, and, despite the encroaching terror, she reassured him with a squeeze. "Mommy's here, baby. I won't let anything happen to you." But the uncertainty gnawed at the edges of her resolve, each second slipping away, the darkness stretching, suffocating. The figure advanced, undeterred, shadows swirling around it like a storm. "You think you can save them? You think their lives are worth more than your own?" Its words dripped. "Just a bit of sacrifice, a choice, and you will have salvation." "No!" The word tasted bitter on her tongue, but Jenna felt her grip on the charm waver. What were the right decisions in a game where despair was the only opponent? The charm began to flicker, barely a pulse of light left. "This old trinket faded long ago, much like your hope," the figure taunted, its form growing bolder with every flicker. Suddenly, out of sheer desperation, Jenna raised her voice. "What if I don't choose at all? What if I refuse?" The laughter that resonated from the figure was malevolent, a promised vindication. "Refusal is a choice too, but it will cost you dearly." In that moment, Lily's fragile voice chimed in, a whisper almost lost amid the chaos. "Mom, I'm not scared." Jenna's heart lurching at the sound, and a new wave of panic rushed over her. "What do you mean? You should be scared." "But I trust you," Lily replied, tears shining in her eyes, refusing to break away from the bond they shared. It was that bond, that unyielding love, that ignited a flame within Jenna's chest, pushing her back against the dread. "You may want a sacrifice," she spat, the words firm, "but you'll get nothing from me." The figure's eyes glimmered with ferocity, unease creeping into its shadowy composition. "Ha! Quaint! Love has always been its own form of darkness." Before Jenna fully processed what was happening, the room quaked. The shadows began to retreat, uncertain under the intensity of her defiance. But they were not finished. With a guttural snarl, the darkness rushed forward, surging like a tidal wave, intent on engulfing everything in its wake. "Hold on!" Jenna shouted, lunging forward as the shadows crashed against her, her children still clutching at her. In that chaotic swirl, a loud crack echoed through the room. The walls trembled violently, and everything around them fractured into shards of darkness. Through the chaos, a sudden blinding flash of white erupted from the charm, sending a shockwave that split the shadows apart. Jenna shut her eyes tight, expecting total annihilation. When she opened them again, the figure had vanished, leaving only the remnants of shadows, writhing and deformed against a brilliant light. There was silence, but at what cost? The faint echoes of a heartbeat thudded in her ears. They had survived, but the haunting laughter of the figure lingered still, hanging in the air like a malignant fog. And then one chilling realization hit her. All was not over. The fragments of the game still lingered, patterns etched deeply in the fabric of her reality. As the light flickered and the shadows started to reform, she heard the figure's voice slither back into her mind. "This isn't the end, Jenna. It's just round one." A wave of dread surged through her. What more awaited them beyond this? Would the next encounter be their last? The game had taken
A new turn, and she was running out of time. The world around Jenna trembled back to life, every splintering shadow shifting uneasily before receding slowly into the corners of the room. The oppressive weight that had pressed down on her chest began to lift, but the initial relief morphed into an icy fear. She felt unmoored, stripped naked before the uncertain darkness. "Mommy?" Ben's voice trembled as he peered into the now flickering light. He looked as small as a frail bird caught in a storm. "Shh, it's okay, honey. Just stay close." Jenna's heart raced, not just from the fear, but from the dreadful realization that their ordeal was far from over. A thin mist hovered just above the floor, curling around their feet like curious snakes. Each step they took sent whispers skittering away from the light, each gust of air filled with muffled secrets. It felt as if the room itself was alive, breathing with every errant shadow dancing along the walls. "Look!" Lily gasped, pointing toward the remnants of the dark figure that had tormented them. It lurked, hiding in the edges, its form nebulous, reminiscent of smoke. It stretched and twisted, taunting them with its elusive presence. "It can't take us again," Jenna whispered, trying to grasp at courage. But doubt sank deeper, an anchor pulling her back into despair. "We just have to find a way out." In that moment, the light from the charm flickered again, more erratically now, battling against the encroaching dusk. The thickening darkness coiled tighter, pulsating like a heartbeat, feeding off their anxiety. Whispers fluttered around them, words indistinct yet heavy with malice. "Mom, it's coming!" Ben's shout broke the diffraction of dread, echoing through the suffocating atmosphere. Jenna pulled them both closer, gathering them within her arms, a shield against the growing terror. "I won't let it take you, I promise." Her voice came out like a fierce growl that barely concealed her own terror. Around them, the walls seemed to lean inward, closing the gap, tightening the space in which they stood. It felt as though unseen eyes scrutinized every breath she took, each heartbeat pulsing with dread. Then, from the depths, the shadow figure materialized, its form sharper, more defined. It glared at Jenna, voice dripping with eagerness. "How naive. You think your love will save you." Jenna grit her teeth, fighting the dread threatening to swallow her whole. "Love isn't naive, it's powerful." A sneer twisted the figure's mouth, its jagged edges slicing into the air.
Powerful enough to defy me, or powerful enough to destroy you. As the words settled in, Jenna felt the ground beneath her tremor. The light from the charm waned, dimmer as shadows overcame its radiance. The whispers crescendoed, a cacophony of despair clawing at her sanity, the walls beginning to pulse, seemingly alive with the anticipation of tragedy. "No, no," she cried, her voice rising above the chaos. "We will not give in." Panic drowned her once more. She clawed
at the charm, her fingers slick with sweat as she fought to reclaim the light. Crystal shards of desperation filled her mind. "Ben, Lily, hold my hand. Don't let go." The children clung fiercely to her, warmth igniting the cold that seized her heart. But the shadow figure bore down, feeding off their resolve, inching closer, intent on crushing their unity beneath its weight. "Do you understand? Only one can survive," it hissed, its voice wrapping around them like a noose. Jenna's heart thundered. "I would rather die than let them go." In that instant, the room erupted in chaos, light battling dark in a ferocious storm. The edge of the charm flickered. Shadows stretched and twisted, tending to suffocate her. Then an ear-piercing crack ripped through the air. The walls splintered, and in that devastating moment, Jenna felt one of her children jerk away. "Ben!" she screamed, eyes wide as he stumbled backward into the dark. A primal terror enveloped her as the shadows lunged, split-second choices reverberating through her mind. It was clear now. A choice must be made. But the question hung heavy in the air. Could they survive the next sacrifice? And would it cost them far more than they could bear? Jenna's heart raced. The darkness twisted around her, hungry for the warmth of her children. "Ben!" she cried, the sound of his name echoing endlessly, as if the shadows themselves were mocking her. The child had tumbled back into the void, swallowed by the smothering blackness. Beneath the clamor of Jenna's raging thoughts, she felt the distinct pull of dread, a warning thrumming through the air like a live wire. "Stay together!" she shouted, gripping Lily's hand like it was her last tether to sanity. The little girl gasped, tiny fingers clenching tighter against her mother's. And then they both spun toward the darkness, eyes wide for any flicker of her son. The shadow figure lingered just at the edge, a silhouette of malice that loomed larger with every moment. "One must pay the price," it taunted, its voice slithering through the air like a snake. It seemed to relish their fear, feeding on the chaos unraveling between them. Jenna turned to Lily, a whirlwind of emotions swirling within her. "We have to find him," she shouted, against the rising tide of despair. But deep down, she felt the weight of the figure's cruel proclamation crush against her heart. "Mommy, Lily trembled, her young voice catching. The reality of their situation crept in, cold and suffocating. Tears pooled in the corners of her eyes, glistening with unshed fear. From within the shroud of darkness, a low murmur emerged, rising above the whispers. "You can have one, or you can lose them both." The words cut sharply, a dull blade lodging deeper into Jenna's psyche. "No!" she yelled, defiance bubbling inside her. Tension twisted through her limbs, igniting a fighting spirit. "I won't let you." Too much was at stake. She had fought too hard to protect them. She squeezed Lily's hand, a fragile anchor amidst rising chaos. "We can do this together." But as she prepared to step into the encroaching shadows, she choked back a sob, uncertainty gnawing at her resolve. What if she lost more than just Ben? What horrors lay in the heart of darkness? "Mommy," Lily quaked beside her, confusion clouding her innocent face. "What do we do?"
The charmed light flickered again, nearly extinguished, casting frantic shadows against the walls. Jenna's grip tightened, every instinct screeching for urgency. "We keep moving." Nervously, they stepped deeper into the fog, silhouettes of the distorted furniture looming like grotesque specters. The charm's radiance bent and swirled, the air thick with tension, as if the haunted house itself held its breath. Jenna guided Lily, heart racing, pulses of violet fear coursing through her veins. Each step felt like a last plea for safety. Memories flooded her, bedtime stories, warmth, the scent of baked cookies filling their home. Then they heard it, the soft echo of Ben's terrified cries just beyond the murk. "Mom, help!" A surge of adrenaline shot through Jenna. "Ben, hold on!" she yelled, pushing through layers of fear, the dark jaws of fate snapping eagerly behind them. Guided by the chilling cry, they pushed onward, the shadows closing in, a clammy breath against their necks. The room wrapped tighter around them like a shroud, whispering promises of hopelessness. The shrieking shadow figure loomed behind, hungry for their every step. Drawing nearer to the sound of his voice, Jenna's heart sank. "Ben!" she shouted, desperation now lacing every syllable. But as she fought against the malevolence pulling at her heart, she could feel the choice looming again. A sacrifice was at hand. Was it worth the risk? Could she face the unimaginable darkness to save her son? In that moment, the shadows parted just enough for her to glimpse Ben, his little body fumbling in the dark. "Mommy!" But just as her arms reached out, the figure lunged, a sweeping movement that shattered her resolve. How much could she bear? How far would she go? The final push neared. As the darkness wrapped around her, Jenna felt the pressure build, suffocating her hope. One foot in the light, one in the shadow, balance was key. But balance was breaking. Jenna braced herself for the choice that loomed like a heavy fog, thickening around her family. An answer had to be made, and that answer would change everything. What lay ahead? Would she be strong enough to confront the ultimate sacrifice? The darkness shifted, a living entity writhing around Jenna and Lily. It felt alive, as if it could hear their hearts pounding. "Mommy!" Ben's voice pierced through the chaos, a lifeline pulling her forward. She glanced feverishly at the shadow figure, its malevolent smile widening, the path to her son wavering before her eyes like a mirage. "Lily, don't let go," Jenna commanded, feeling the pull of the shadows tugging at her like a frigid. She pushed forward, her pulse quickening, the weight of dread heavy on her chest. "We can't stop!" With every step, the air grew thicker, closing in around them. The comforting glow of the charms stuttered, barely containing the relentless darkness. As they stumbled deeper, Jenna felt a cold sweat trickle down her spine, her resolve faltering. "Mommy, I can't," Lily whimpered, her small body trembling against the dark encroachment. Jenna felt a surge of anger and determination. They couldn't give in. "Listen to me, Lily, we're almost there," she shouted, urgency sharpening her voice. But doubt clawed at her mind, gnawing on her nerves. What if they were too late? What if it was all for nothing? Then she heard it again, Ben's cries spilling from the shadows like hot coals. "Mom, I can't see. Where are you?" "Keep talking, Ben. We're coming," Jenna urged, her heart racing. She could almost feel his presence, a spark in the darkness amid a swirling storm. Each sound was a tether, pulling them closer. Her instincts screaming they were running out of time. Suddenly, a shrill laugh cut through the darkness, the shadow figure's voice echoing around them. "One must pay the price," it intoned, its words haunting and filled with twisted glee. Jenna's grip on Lily tightened. "We won't pay anything," she hissed, fury igniting inside her. But the shadows pressed against them, thick and suffocating. "Mommy, I can't breathe," Lily gasped, and Jenna's heart twisted in agony. What kind of nightmare was this? Just ahead, she saw him again, Ben, his small form flailing hopelessly in the dark. "Ben!" she cried, reaching out, desperate to bridge the gap. The distance felt insurmountable, shadows clawing at their feet, pulling them back. "Mommy, help!" Ben's voice cracked with fear. In that moment, time froze. The shadow figure surged closer, its gaze burning with intent. Jenna could feel the weight of the decision forming around her, an invisible chain binding her to Lily. "Stay with me, Lily," Jenna yelled, shaking fear from her bones. "We can't let him go." But the dark whispers pressed in, promising everything if she let one of them slip away. Jenna felt a searing pain in her heart. Would it truly protect one if they sacrificed the other? "Mommy," Lily said, the quiver in her voice cutting like glass. In that instant, the shadows shifted violently, revealing glimpses of hurt and betrayal, laughter laced with malice. "One or the other," it echoed, a chorus of torment weaving through the air. Jenna surged forward, pulling Lily close. "Trust me, we're going to get him." But she felt the dark force gripping tighter, the laughter strengthening, feeding off her fear and uncertainty. "Mom, I see." Ben's voice faded, swallowed by the shadows as the darkness thickened. The pressure mounted, squeezing the breath from her lungs. Jenna screamed, a raw sound that echoed through the void. "No, I won't lose either of you." At that moment, a blast of light erupted.
The charm, pushing against the shadows. Jenna saw the figure recoil, its form twisting and writhing. Was this their chance? But the light flickered, threatening to die, and she could feel her own strength waning. "Mommy, please!" Lily cried, her voice filled with desperation. Jenna's chest tightened. The walls of darkness closed in again, threatening to swallow them whole. She had to act, had to decide. What would she choose? The clock of fate ticked louder, each second a deafening roar in her ears. And as panic surged, a sinister thought sparkled in the shadows. What if the price was more than she could ever bear? As Jenna hesitated, the air turned electric with malevolence. The shadows now whispered her deepest fears, of loss, betrayal, despair. Would she find the strength to break free, or plunge into darkness, forever severed from her children? The answer lingered just out of reach, sinking deeper into the smoke as the figure loomed closer, its next move imminent. What awaited them in the heart of the darkness? Could they truly escape the looming price before it was too late? The shadows roared. A palpable dread gripped Jenna, weaving through her bones, making her muscles scream for retreat. The oppressive darkness swirled like a living beast, gnashing its teeth, mocking her resolve. She felt the tug of the abyss, a cruel invitation to surrender. "Mommy, please!" Lily cried again, her small hand slipping just slightly from Jenna's grasp. Panic clawed at Jenna's throat. "Stay with me." She forced her gaze ahead, locking on to the flicker of Ben's form. He was still there, struggling, a beacon of hope lost in the nothingness. But the closer they got, the darker the shadows became, thickening around them like a storm. "Let go of her!" Jenna screamed, a burst of rage fired from her core. The shadow figure paused, its eyes glimmering with a hunger that twisted in Jenna's stomach. "You want me? Come get me!" The shadows hissed, recoiling slightly, as if her anger had struck a chord. The darkness flickered, revealing twisted faces with hollow eyes, half-formed nightmares echoing lost grasp of dreams. Each face held a story, betrayal, grief, despair, all tainted with malice. Jenna felt an icy claw grip her heart. "Mommy, it's too scary," Lily whimpered, burying her face in Jenna's side. "Shh," Jenna cooed, though terror twisted her heart. The shadows pressed in, a fog of oppressive despair.
She had to keep moving. If she stayed still, they would be swallowed. "Mom, I can't see," Ben shouted again, his voice quaking and distant. "I'm coming, Ben, hold on," she yelled, adrenaline pumping through her veins like a drug, spurring her onward. She reached out as if to grasp the light seeping from the charm, urging it to burn brighter. The warmth flickered, fighting back the advancing darkness, but threatening to fail. "Mom," Ben's voice cracked, piercing through the haze as it grew thinner. "Almost there." Jenna could feel a tightness in her chest, desperation.
Clawing at her throat. She wanted to cry out, "Don't leave me!" But her focus couldn't waver. They needed to reach him. Something cold and sharp scraped across her ankle. The shadows tightened, their whispers a cacophony of despair. One must pay the price. The sinister voice sent chills racing down Jenna's spine. She could see it, the figure in the darkness, close enough now that she could almost decipher its twisted face. Fear morphed into rage. "I refuse. You won't take my children." With a roar that sounded more like an animal than a woman, she surged forward, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She clenched her jaw. The shadows tightened around her, summoning her deepest fears, the terror of not being able to protect her kids. "Trust me," she yelled, feeling Lily cling desperately to her. Suddenly, a searing light burst forth from the charm, brighter than Jenna had ever seen. For a moment, the darkness shrieked, pulling back from the brilliance. But it was fleeting. The light sputtered, dimming, and she could feel the darkness twisting back, clawing towards them, angry, thrumming with vengeance. In that split second, the shadow figure lunged, a mass with hollow eyes, grasping towards Lily. "Let her go," Jenna screamed, and she felt a surge of heat beneath her skin. Love, raw and unyielding, coursed through her veins. It ignited a last-ditch effort to break free. "Mommy!" Lily cried, her panic slicing through the air. Jenna's heart raced. What if she didn't make it? The shadows recoiled momentarily, but only just. "Mommy!" Lily's voice trembled, the sound breaking Jenna's heart. With one last breath, Jenna lunged forward, her body colliding with the shadow. It felt like running into a wall of ice, a crushing weight pinching her breath, but she could not falter. And then she realized, she wasn't just fighting the darkness. She was challenging the very roots of despair, the shadows that threatened to consume everything she loved. But at what cost? As she surged against the darkness again, something tugged at her from within. What if she didn't have enough light to win this battle? What if the shadows took everything? "Mom!" Ben's voice faded once more, and Jenna screamed as the darkness surged forward, inexorable, unyielding. Caught in the turmoil, Jenna felt a rift forming. Beneath her feet, the ground trembled. Was the darkness trying to split them apart? Desperation flashed in her eyes as the world around her throbbed with dread. Could she withstand it? The shadows whispered promises of freedom and release, everything she could let go. But was it worth sacrificing everything? As light flickered again, drawing both hope and peril near, she needed a decision. Would she stand firm against the void? Or would darkness finally claim her? There, at the brink of collapse, the air crackled with something sinister. Jenna struggled, feeling the shadows closing in, enveloping them all. Was there hope amidst the consuming darkness? Would they finally find a way, or was it too late? Every fiber of her being, Jenna felt the void pulling at her sanity, taunting her with threats laced in darkness. She gritted her teeth, determination surging through her veins as she clutched her children close. "We won't let you take them!" she screamed, her voice echoing through the chaos, a war cry against the malevolent force. The shadows coiled tighter, clammy tendrils reaching towards Ben and Lily, whispering vile promises that slithered into Jenna's mind.
One must pay the price. A guttural laugh followed, each word a dagger that struck at her heart, twisting deeper. No, she howled, a primal resolve igniting. You want a sacrifice? Take me, but leave my kids alone. Jenna could feel her heart break at the thought. The figures ebbed and flowed around her, each stealthy whisper cutting through her resolve. Ah, so noble, the shadow figure hissed, its voice slithering around them like mist. But think carefully. One life for the other. It's an easy choice to make in the end. The air shifted, heavy with dread, and its lingering eyes twinkled with madness. Jenna's mind raced, the weight of the choice felt suffocating. Her heart surged with unyielding love for her children, a flicker of light amid the darkness. We are stronger together. You will never break us, she shouted, summoning all the strength she had left. The ground shook violently beneath them. The shadows lunged forward with renewed vigor. You think your unity can withstand the storm? The figure laughed, a sound both terrifying and alluring, its shadows writhing in anticipation of despair. Sudden warmth flooded her as she remembered the charm, still grasped in her hand. It pulsed faintly, a remnant of light in the encroaching darkness. This ends now, Jenna declared, clinging to the charm like a lifeline, her love for her children radiating out, a fierce and protective aura. Together, she shouted, locking eyes with Ben and Lily. They nodded, a silent vow spiraling unspoken through the air. The bond they shared was electricity, and it ignited a flame of defiance that wrapped around them, intertwining their souls against the dark. The shadows hissed, recoiling slightly, but their resolve was unshakable. Let us be the light, Jenna cried, lifting the charm high, urging its glow to blaze fiercely as it had before. With a blinding flash, the charm released a burst of energy that expanded outward, illuminating the room, penetrating the fog of despair. Can't you see? Love is stronger than your darkness, she shouted, feeling the power coursing through her, connecting her deeply with her children. The air thrummed with energy, shadows yowling in protest, recoiling from the warmth, retreating for the first time. The figure glared at Jenna, its facade of confidence cracking. You can't keep me at bay forever, it hissed, desperation creeping into its voice. But Jenna didn't relent. No, but we can choose how we move forward. Our love isn't a bargaining chip. As the shadows shrieked and shifted around them, the trio stepped
forward, hand in hand, pushing back against the encroaching void. The connection surged, fueling their fight as they defied the darkness together. Every step they took rendered the shadows weaker, until they finally stumbled into a swirling vortex of light that engulfed them completely. The figure screamed, its form dissolving into smoke, shadows scattered like ashes across the gale. "This isn't the end!" it shrieked, its final words echoing ominously as it vanished completely, leaving behind a suffocating silence. In the aftermath, Jenna, Ben, and Lily stood huddled together, the warmth of love surrounding them like a comforting embrace amid the quiet. With trembling hands, she pulled them closer, relief washing over her like a tide. "Mom?" Ben's voice broke the stillness, tentative yet buoyant. Did we win?" Jenna's chest tightened as she gazed at the little faces illuminated by the gentle light of the charm, now pulsing softly in her hand. "For now," she whispered, heart full yet wary. "But we have to stay vigilant. Darkness is always waiting for a moment of weakness." They nodded, understanding the weight of her words, a shared bond unbroken in their hearts. They didn't escape unscathed, But together, they could face the dawn, the shadows behind them slowly fading into the past. Walking hand in hand towards the door that led outside, Jenna felt a glimmer of hope spark in her chest. They had faced the darkness and emerged stronger. "Let's go home," she said softly. And as they stepped outside, the sun broke through the horizon, washing them in amber light, illuminating their path. In that moment, Jenna knew, no matter the fears that lurked in the corners of darkness, they were a family, united against whatever came next. And for now, that was enough. You need to subscribe now to make sure you don't miss the next exclusive stories that dive deeper into this universe. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button to literally feed the algorithm and keep the stories flowing. Flood the comments section with your theories and reactions about the ending. I want to hear from you. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans know how vital it is to support the channel. Let's do this together.